This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every year before the season starts, there are a few things that people focus on because people can only focus on so much that take up so much of the attention that it kind of creates a vacuum around other issues that the team has, right? I argued for a long time the instability around the quarterback situation really made it harder for people to notice just how much the offensive line for the Cleveland Browns started to deteriorate as early as late 2022, but especially during 2023, the last year that Bill Callahan was here. And in 2024, it fell off the wheels, and in 2025 was what it was, right? But we were so fixated on the Deshaun Watson-Russ conversations that we didn't really notice that the offensive line had started to show signs of decay. So much so that people still think that the offensive line only got bad after Bill Callahan left. But the truth is, the last 2 years he was here, there were signs that this offensive line was going to fall apart a little bit faster than people were anticipating. That's one example, but there's plenty of examples out there of things that take your attention, like a quarterback competition, or maybe you get a lot of new rookies at one position, right? 2 new wide receivers, a new head coach. There's a lot of different threads that are tugging on the attention spans of Browns fans to focus on this or focus on that shiny thing or this shiny thing. But there are a couple of things that I've looked at this roster and I've noticed that I think are flying a bit under the radar that we really ought to pay attention to. What are those things? I'll explain them, but before we get into that, got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. Hey, let me talk to you about my sponsor for this year, PrizePicks. It's a fun way to win cash while you're watching your favorite teams. Forget complex betting rules. Their app is designed to be incredibly easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Speaking of, here are my picks for this upcoming NFL season. They have Myles Garrett at 14 sacks here. I think he will get more than 14 sacks. Joe Burrow at 3,875 passing yards. I think he'll be a 4,000-yard passer. I'm going to go with more. They have Derrick Henry at 1,224 yards. I'm going to go less than that. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You can follow me on the app at KWEN_C to see all of my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineups when you download the app using the link in the description. And I think the bulk of the area where you're going to find these kind of little holes that people aren't really paying attention or talking about is going to be on the defense. There's so much focus on the offense. The team has put so much focus on the offense. 6 new offensive linemen, 2 new wide receivers, a new head coach, a completely new staff on the offensive side of the ball, minus a couple of position coaches, that it's natural that that's where people's attention goes. The defensive side of the ball has some new things going on that we really haven't talked about as much as the offensive side of the ball for reasons that make sense, right? There is a new defensive coordinator, but they're retaining a lot of the same coaches that the last defensive coordinator had, right? There's a lot of continuity there. Jock Caesar, Jason Tarver, Ephraim Banda, right? Like that's 3 levels of the defense that are retaining the same coaches that they had last year. From what we know about Mike Rutenberg and what we know about this job opening the defensive coordinator one, it was done with the intent that not much would change on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm not really being critical of people not covering the defensive side of the ball. But if there were an area of this football team where there would be issues that would fly under the radar, it would be on the defensive side of the ball. Keep in mind, the reason that the offensive line flew under the radar, despite having multiple red flags pop up throughout the last 2 or 3 years of that offensive line's run, was because the offensive line was elite in 2020. It was elite in 2021. People thought that we didn't have to, pay attention to it because it was going to take care of itself, because that offensive line was operating at the highest level. They were the best offensive line in football for 2 years straight in 2020 and 2021. Nobody really expected them to break down as early as 2 years after they were already the best offensive line in football. But there were signs as early as 2022 that demonstrated that that might be the case for the Cleveland Browns offensive line. The defense is the area where we have to learn from that mistake. I think the Browns got a little overconfident because the offensive line was really good. So they didn't really give it the maintenance it deserves. The defense deserves that same level of maintenance. And if we put a close, a magnifying glass to it, there's not any major problems yet, but there are some budding issues that are starting to show itself in the form of the depth chart. Right? The first area is defensive back depth. Now, this is one that people have talked about, not as much as they probably should, but this has definitely been discussed by people. Right now, the Browns at the top are fine, right? They got Denzel Ward, they got Tyson Campbell, and they have Ronnie Hickman, Grant Delpit, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren to throw into the mix to be there in the secondary. So those 5 players are actually pretty good, right? The issue isn't the shell of the Browns defense. It's everything underneath it that is an issue, right? Because if you crack open that shell and maybe Tyson Campbell isn't as good as he was last year, or Denzel Ward gets hurt this year, or, one of your safeties goes down, then the cracks get to be exposed. You're playing Miles Harden a lot more. If you look at our DB depth, the corners behind Denzel Ward are Anthony Kendall, Nate Evans, Tyler Herring. Not really feeling amazing about that, right? The other corners are Dom Jones, D'Angelo Ross, and Trey Avery. Now, it might turn out that those players are better than their name recognition says they are. And I certainly hope that's the case, that DB, who's not getting much love right now, shows up in camp and we feel great about our second and third and fourth and fifth options there in that DB room. I hope it's one of those rooms where we're saying to ourselves, we're going to have to cut a good player by the end of camp. But right now, based on what I know about these players, which admittedly is not much, you got to be a little concerned about that, right? Because Denzel Ward is going to miss a game or two. He doesn't miss as much as people think that Denzel Ward misses, but he's certainly good to miss a game or two. So you have to be prepared for that. Tyson Campbell is really the one who concerns me the most, not because he might get injured, which is possible. Every player can possibly get injured, but I do think that the worry about Denzel Ward getting injured is a little bit higher than really where his history has been over the last couple of years. My worry is with Tyson Campbell because I'm not 100% sure he's going to play at the same level that he did in the second half of the season for the Cleveland Browns. If you look at that first half of the year for him in Jacksonville, it was kind of rough. He was giving up a lot of big plays, a lot of miscommunication. He comes to Cleveland, and he's playing in a different defense, and there's a different set of things that the Browns are asking him to do. But it just seemed like it didn't seem like those things stopped happening because technique-wise he got so much better. It seems like those things stop happening because those things just stop happening to him, right? Like he just stopped getting those matchups. And maybe the presence of Denzel Ward shifts him into a better position. But again, that brings you to the problem. If Tyson Campbell is a different corner when he has to be the number one guy, like we saw in Jacksonville where it went really rough for him, and being the number two guy is more beneficial to him, what happens if Denzel Ward misses a game? You have to shift Tyson Campbell over and then Dom Jones to corner number two. What happens to your secondary then? Does it completely fall apart? Do you not have any redundancy here, any room for injury for a room, DB in general, right? Like DBs, I got to see what the percentages are, but I feel like if we did a study of position groups that missed the most games per season, defensive backs would be leading the league, right? Like DBs seem to get hurt the most, regardless of if you think they're injury prone or not, right? Like this isn't even about Denzel Ward. This is a position group that you're going to miss guys from because DBs just get soft tissue injuries throughout the year. They're jumping, they're running backwards. They're doing a lot of things that will put them in a situation to get injured. And they seemingly get injured from just anecdotally from watching football. I don't know if this is the analytical truth, but anecdotally, it feels like they get injured at a higher rate. So not having depth at a position like defensive back is a real dangerous game to play, especially when you have the concern of like, oh, what if Denzel Ward does go down? You shift Tyson Campbell over to number one, and then what happens to the rest of that room? Obviously, the Browns are going to try to supplement that room with their depth at safety. They do have extra depth at safety. They have three good safeties they can play in Ronnie Hickman and Grant Delpit and in Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. And that will certainly do something to help their depth at defensive back. But I do wonder, are there enough contingencies there? That feels like the area where there's the most disaster potential. Keep in mind, like we haven't even talked much about the nickel corner position, which has been a problem, right? Now, again, the Browns are going to supplement it with safety play. But still, there's just a million ways things can shift that would make me uncomfortable with the current alignment of the Browns cornerback room. So DB depth, I think, is an issue that people aren't talking enough about. The other thing on defense that I don't think people are talking enough about is a linebacker depth. Now, again, the reason people aren't really talking about it, you got Carson Schlesinger, you got Quincy Williams. That's a great starting lineup at linebacker, right? Whoever your Sam linebacker is whoever your Sam linebacker is. The Browns have done a good job developing that position. But Quincy Williams, Carson Schlesinger, that's a nice duo. And look, both those players have a history of being able to stay healthy. Carson Schlesinger was healthy all of last year despite playing a ton. Quincy Williams has a history of staying healthy. So it's not like these guys are injury prone. Linebacker is also a position where guys tend to stay on the field more often than not. My worry is just like, okay, do we have enough behind to get through certain segments in games or to be more versatile with matchups, right? Do we have somebody we can throw in there, a bigger body that'll help us match up against a team that's a little bit more heavy, stuff like that? Because outside of Carson Schlesinger, there's Winston Reed, who we really don't know much about, Easton Mascara-Arnold, who's a special teams player, Reed Caruco, who is I don't know anything about, Nathaniel Watson, who got cut like 2 times so far in his career by the Browns, brought back though, but cut a couple of times. You got Justin Jefferson, who's a 5th-round pick out of Alabama this year. Basically, that linebacker room is Carson Schlesinger, Quincy Williams, bunch of names. Not saying anything negative about those names, just like DB. Maybe during the camp, we see guys step up and we're like, yeah, Jason Tarver did it again. He found like 3 dudes who could start, but that is the concern there, right? Is that there are 2 guys there that you feel good about, Schlesinger, Quincy Williams, bunch of names after that. And if Carson Schlesinger goes out, then I have concerns about this linebacker room. Definitely have to focus in on that. Definitely have to see if we can add maybe another piece there. Like, same thing with defensive back. I would love to have 2 more corners I feel great about in that defensive back room. Linebacker, I would love to have a linebacker or 2 that I feel better about in that room. And hopefully that happens during camp. But for right now, you got to look at that and say, hey, looks like a little bit of an issue there. Looks like something that could make it turn into a bigger leak to this defense and be a big reason why they can't replicate the success they had last year. Let's shift over to the offensive side of the ball. Now, for the most part, the flaws on the offensive side of the ball are well documented. We've talked plenty. I'm almost sick of doing it about the Browns' faulty quarterback situation? Are you team Shador? Are you team Deshaun Watson? Are you team Giant Meteor? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like right now. You know what I mean? It feels like a lot of just let's wait till 2027 going on in that quarterback room. But, you can have the debate between those two. I tend to lean towards wanting to play a younger player versus seeing Deshaun Watson out there for an extended period of time. But who knows? Maybe Deshaun Watson goes out there in camp, looks good, gets my hopes up, and disappoints me one more time before he walks out with $230 million. So, there's always that to look forward to. But we've talked about those problems at quarterback. We talked about the upside of it, the downside of it, the neutralness of it, the hopes that we could just be okay there. All that has been discussed. We have diagnosed the quarterback competition in the room every way that you can. We done Benny Hinned that conversation up. Wide receiver, we've talked about pretty thoroughly, especially in the lead up to the draft. Offensive line, we talked about a ton given the amount of activity that the Cleveland Browns have had on the offensive line. But you know what area we really haven't talked about at all? Running back. Now you might say, well, why would we talk about it? We got Quincy Judkins, we got Dylan Sampson, some people like Rocket Sanders. We're set. And yeah, if those three guys are healthy, that room is good. I'm not going to hear a disagreement from me. If that room has those three guys, then that room's going to be fine. I would agree 100% with that sentiment. My worry is, what if one of those guys goes down? What's the backup plan for that running back room? And again, we're talking about a position that has a high rate of injury due to the nature of the position, right? We talked about defensive backs get injured a lot. It's important to have depth at defensive back because they tend to get hurt. Running backs take a beating throughout the year. They're bigger guys than defensive backs, but they take a beating throughout the year. They play a position that doesn't get paid because of the high rate of wear and tear and probability of injury. So you can't just look at a running back room and go, well, if we have no injuries whatsoever, we're 100% okay. You have to factor in, hey, what if this piece gets hurt? Do we have something for that? What if that piece gets hurt? Do we have something for that? What if this piece gets hurt? Do we have something for that? I am of the extreme opinion amongst football nerds that keeping 4 running backs is something that teams should do more often because of this. Running backs get hurt. Running game is really important. If you get caught off balance in your run game, it can really, really do a number on your ability to be successful during the season. Some people don't care. They just see running backs as disposable. They'll put 2 of them on a roster and ride it out. And I think that's crazy. So I look at the Browns running back room and I say, yeah, if they're healthy, they're okay. But if Quincy Judkins misses like an extended period of time this year, what do we do for a team that's going to be very reliant on running the football? I think I've been screaming this from the mountaintops. The Browns are going to be more reliant on running the football than they've been over the last couple of years. They're going to run this ball a ton. If you look at what Todd Monken has done in Baltimore, even with an elite franchise quarterback, they were running the ball a lot in Baltimore. So knowing that the run game is going to be very important this year for the Cleveland Browns, you have to look at this room and say, do we have any contingencies? And if Quincy gets hurt, who is fit to step up into that bell cow role? I like Dylan Sampson. I don't know if that's Dylan Sampson in the NFL. I know he used to be a bell cow back at Tennessee, but it did not seem like Deuce Staley was comfortable putting him in that role when Quincy was out, either at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season. So I don't know if that's something that Dylan Sampson could do. I think Dylan Sampson is really set to be a third down running back. But he's not a every down back. So you can't just shift up the order. So what are you going to do then? You're going to start Rocket Sanders and give him the bulk of your carries for a team that's going to be heavily dependent on the run game? This is why, and again, I know I've done this a bunch of times before. Some people might be tired of it. I have advocated for the Browns to go out and get Nick Chubb. Because Nick Chubb can be your third or fourth running back. Nick Chubb, if Quinshawn gets hurt, can do what he did last year with the Houston Texans, step up, take a bell cow position, and you can be fine. Right? Like, you're going to rely on the run game, and you can be fine. Also, hey, look, man, it gives you some goodwill with the fans, and you desperately need that right now if you're the Cleveland Browns. I see nothing but upside to this. He's not going to be expensive. You don't have to play him. You don't have to start him. Obviously, you're not going to start him. And look, you only have to use him in case of an emergency. But right now, the way the running back room is set up, we're one big hit away from giving Rocket Sanders, who, look, is fine, but I don't know if I want to give him 20 carries a game. But that's the situation that we're in. This entire offense is built around the Browns' ability to run the football. And we have no contingency plan if our number one running back gets hurt. That, to me, is something that I really would love them to address. Now, again, just like I've given every other position group in this video the grace of, if the Browns run this throughout training camp and we feel great about Rocket Sanders because he's been performing well, then fine. Right? Then fine. We'll just roll with it. But if we're not at that place, I do think we really have to consider what our contingency plan is if Quinshawn gets hurt. This isn't some hypothetical. You know, Quinshawn missed games 2 times last season. Well, not just 2 times, 2 separate instances where he missed games. So you got to take that seriously. Those are my 3 areas where I think people should pay more attention to that could be problems for the Browns in the future. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.